have to admit, I am now turning from bemusement to amusement as an autonomous zone. They are calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, has been set up in Seattle. Protesters have taken over apparently a 6 or 7 block radius in Seattle and have declared their own state. They've actually put up a sign that says, "You are now leaving the USA." Not kidding, the Capitol Hill Free Zone, they call it the Autonomous Zone, is a protester-occupied zone. Okay, it's sort of like the Occupy Wall Street routine that we saw a few years back in about 2010. And it is going to end up exactly the same way. It happened because the police were told by Mayor Jenny Durkan to essentially withdraw from the area and to cede the area to the cops. And it's turned into a raucous comedy almost immediately. Now, I think that a lot of people across the United States are feeling that things have grown out of control just a little bit. That no matter how much you believe that police brutality is wrong, and everyone who is good believes this, and no matter how much you believe racism is wrong, and you don't have to protest to believe that racism is wrong, it's kind of weird that we are now talking openly about a complete takeover of a major part of a major city by protesters against the police, where apparently, according to the cops, some extortion is going on. The protesters have built walls. They've gone full Trump, guys. They've gone full authoritarian, according to the left, right? They've built walls, not kidding. They actually built a wall to keep people out. They took over the East Precinct of the Seattle Police Department. They called it the Seattle People's Department, which is... I'm really enjoying this live showing on continuous loop of The Dark Knight Rises. It's really exciting stuff. They set up physical barriers. They apparently have armed people patrolling the physical barriers. Apparently, they are stopping and frisking people who are entering. I'm not kidding about this. They are stopping and frisking people who are entering. And this was to get rid of the cops, guys. This was to get rid of the evil, horrible Seattle Police Department. And immediately upon that happening, people in there were like, "Oh, you mean now there's power that's up for grabs?" It turns out that anarchy is usually a pretext for tyranny. Chaos is usually a pretext for terrible people taking over. And so, according to multiple reports, essentially a warlord is taking over. I mean, we're going to get Escape from New York, except it's Escape from Seattle. We're going to send in Snake Plissken. All that has to happen here is for Air Force One to be downed inside the Seattle Autonomous Free Zone for things to get really wild. So here is exactly what went down. According to Allah Pundit over at Hot Air, apparently Seattle PD cracked down hard on protesters on Sunday night, despite the mayor having given a speech earlier that day calling for de-escalation. In order to lower the temperature, the week-long blockade by the police of their East Precinct was lifted, and demonstrators were allowed to march past. But that's not all. Apparently, they were afraid that the rioters were going to burn down a police precinct. So instead, the cops and the National Guard pulled out of the building entirely by Monday afternoon. They removed all the equipment and the files, they boarded the place up, and they left. And thus was born a new nation, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or chaz for short, which the country of chaz. A place where progressives can indulge in some of the most humiliating stereotype of left-wing protest subculture. According to reports, by early Tuesday, demonstrators had established a perimeter with improvised barriers and deputized scouts. In the afternoon, the no-cop co-op popped up, slinging kebabs, snacks, and free water to passers-by. A teach-in square was established at the intersection of 12th and Pine. We're going to get like a full Maoist regime here. Tents were pitched near the precinct, where people were encouraged to stay throughout the night, or even just for 2 or 3 hours to hold the space. By nightfall, they'd built their own outdoor cinema. The crowd was energized to build connections. People spoke about investing in black-owned banks, divesting from corporations, and prison reform. One speaker issued a warning about the American Legislative Exchange Council, quote, "a group of usually white men from major corporations who don't know our issues and make laws." Protesters hung a banner on the East Precinct that read, "Property of the People," according to KOMO, Como, which is one of the local stations. And there are plenty of photos available. There's even a map replete with labels like Regime-Occupied Safeway. Regime-Occupied Safeway. Solid stuff, guys. Really good stuff. Now, people inside, come on, this is beyond parody. It's like the right wing made this up. Honestly, it's as though it came from the fever dream of of Tom Wolfe. I mean, that's what it feels like. Activists who are claiming to have helped create the police no-go zone in Seattle are now asking for food from the outside. There's an activist who tweeted out, "The homeless people we invited took away all the food at the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone." You got rid of law and order, and then the homeless people came and took all your food. Because you're communists, and this is what happens, you stupid communists. It's delicious. It's delicious. Again, my bemusement, so my outrage at the destruction of law and order turned to bemusement as I watched the mayor of Seattle cave to all of this, and now it has turned to full-scale amusement as the thing turns into a predictable debacle. According to one of the anarchists over there, We need more food to keep the area operational. Please, if possible, bring, you ready for this? Vegan meat substitutes, fruits, oats, soy products, etc. Anything to help us eat. Yes, they're starving in there because they don't have the Morningstar Farms vegan breakfast products. We need those in there right now. This 18-year-old activist appears to be a transgender woman and self-described lesbian anarchist, according to her now private Twitter account. Well done, everybody. Well, I mean, this is... And so what are the authorities doing about this? Because there are actual businesses and, people who are not crazy who live here. So what are they doing about this? Nothing. Mayor Jenny Durkin, who watched her offices taken over the other day by protesters at the behest of Socialist Councilwoman Shama Sawant, who's a full-scale idiot. I mean, Shama Sawant is a person who occupied Boeing and asked that Boeing stop making military materials so that they could create buses for the homeless or something like that. She's a crazy person, Shama Sawant. So Mayor Jenny Durkin tweeted out in an effort, this is June 8th, right, so 3 days ago, in an effort to proactively de-escalate interactions between protesters and law enforcement outside the East Precinct, Chief Best and Seattle PD officers have removed barricades surrounding the East Precinct while safely securing the facility. In addition, Seattle Fire has several vehicles stationed near the precinct to ensure emerging medical needs and fires are addressed if necessary. Keeping this area safe is critical. There are approximately 500 residential homes in this block. As the chief takes this operational step, we will continue to remain focused on what we can and must do to address the systemic inequities that continue to disproportionately impact our black residents. So you're going to just let people take over a 7-block radius in your city in order to fight inequity. Wow. Keeping demonstrations peaceful must be a joint effort between our community members and law enforcement. Now, it gets better. Okay, the story gets better. Because it is spectacular in every possible way it is possible for this story to be spectacular. We will bring you all of the details of the brand new secessionist country that has been established inside the United States. It's exciting, exciting stuff, guys.